Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alyson Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Indian security forces kill 3 Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists in an encounter in Jammu and Kashmir's Shopian district, a day after Prime Minister Modi unveiled a new anti-terror doctrine following Operation Sindoor, launched to retaliate the April 22nd Pahalgam terror attack. US President Donald Trump meets Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Riyadh as he kicks off his first international tour of his second term. With a focus on major business deals, he will also visit Qatar and the UAE later this week. Bangladesh's election commission suspends ousted leader Sheikh Hasina's Awami League, barring it from the upcoming elections. This after the interim leader Muhammad Yunus banned the party's activities under the Anti-Terrorism Act over the weekend. Armed clashes erupt in Libya's capital Tripoli after the reported killing of a militia leader. At least 7 people are dead as the United Nations urges calm. And French movie star Gérard Depardieu found guilty of sexually assaulting 2 women on a 2021 film set and has been handed a 18-month suspended sentence. The 76-year-old has appeared in over 200 films. Hello and welcome. We begin with South Africa. The first group of white South Africans has arrived in the United States after President Donald Trump granted them refugee status as victims of what he calls racial injustice. The group of around 50 white South Africans was welcomed at Dulles Airport in Virginia following their flight from Johannesburg. The group includes families with children. Some arrived waving small American flags. They were greeted by the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State and Homeland Security.
On behalf of President Trump, Secretary Leone, we're just so grateful that you guys are here. Everybody within DHS, we've been so excited to be able to get you guys here to process, to vet, everything, so you guys get a really warm start.
Shortly before the group's arrival, President Trump said he is expected to meet with South African leaders next week. Trump repeated his allegations that Afrikaners are fleeing a terrible situation back home.
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. Now, South Africa leadership is coming to see me, I understand, sometime next week. And, we're supposed to have I guess, a G20 meeting there or something. But we're having a G20 meeting. I don't know how we can go unless that situation's taken care of.
South Africa has reacted by saying the white Afrikaners who have accepted resettlement in the United States did not face any form of persecution in South Africa. America's biggest trading partner in Africa is now under fire from Washington. As soon as Trump took office for a second term, he accused the South African government of confiscating white Afrikaans farmers' land as a part of reforms meant to redress inequalities entrenched under the former apartheid system. For context, whites make up 7.3% of South Africa's population, but own more than 70% of the land. even 30 years after apartheid ended. Afrikaners are one ethnic group in South Africa, mostly descended from Dutch settlers. They constitute approximately 5% to 6% of South Africa's population. Though a numerical minority, Afrikaners have historically held a strong economic position in South Africa, but Trump says they are now facing persecution. The South African government has called his claim misinformation. It has denied mistreating whites or forcibly seizing any land. Pretoria has also dismissed allegations by tech billionaire Elon Musk, who was born in South Africa. Musk has repeatedly accused the black-led government of encouraging a white genocide and is believed to be an influential voice behind Trump's narrative. The issue has also strained bilateral ties. Trump has cut all aid to South Africa, expelled South Africa's ambassador, avoided G20 meetings, and imposed high tariffs on South African exports. As Trump's relocation plan unfolds, many in South Africa have expressed surprise that whites are being granted victim status in South Africa. Even some groups that represent white South Africans have rejected the U.S. offer. Meanwhile, in the U.S., the Episcopal Church's Migration Service is refusing a directive from the federal government to help resettle white South African refugees. The church cites its commitment to racial justice and reconciliation. It says it's painful to see one group of refugees selected in an unusual manner receive preferential treatment over others who have waited years in dangerous conditions. Now, this comes even as Trump has slashed most refugee programs, including those for Afghanistan, Iraq, and sub-Saharan Africa. But he has fast-tracked applications from white South Africans. South Africa has called for dialogue. President Cyril Ramaphosa said last month he spoke to Trump and agreed to meet soon. Trump now says South African leaders are expected in Washington next week. Will there be a resolution? Now, for more on this, we have with us Boitumelo Ben Senokoane, Associate Professor at UNISA and a political commentator who is joining us live from Pretoria, South Africa. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much and good afternoon.
Now, how unprecedented is the Trump administration's decision to grant refugee status to white South Africans on the grounds of racial discrimination? And what legal or political precedent might this set for future asylum claims?
Look, I'm of a view that you won't find any black racist anywhere, because you'll know that racism is on the basis of certain privileges and certain color of skin, and in most of the time it will be a white skin disguised as whiteness or any other form of ism. So it's unfounded that you'll find any form of racism against any white anywhere and in South Africa. By the way, those whites, 49 whites that have left, claiming that there's been a discrimination against them. If you had to go one by one out of the 49, classify them or categorize them, you will come with a different conclusion. And I dare say that Afrikaner, for example, Afrikanerdom or Afrikaner nationalism was found on the basis of a religion only for Afrikaners, economic benefits only for Afrikaners. And when the 1994 Constitution was drafted, was a document drafted as a base for equality and justice, and in ensuring that the injustices of the past are corrected and are attended to. And the base that they are ill-treated or their land is taken, it's questionable.
Right. And what are the possible diplomatic implications of this move for U.S.-South Africa relations, especially with President Trump expecting South African leadership to visit amid this controversy?
Of course, we will know that the AGOA agreements, trade agreements, will be affected. We know that trade in general will be affected. But that does not mean that South Africa should budge, especially in issues pertaining to addressing the injustices of the past, the issues of equality, the issue of ensuring that there's transformation in the country. If that comes with a penalty against the ordinary South Africans and South Africa itself, I think it's a price that we should be willing to pay as South African, because the Trump administration's time will be only for 5 years, and we know that every era, every dictator, their term comes to an end.
Right, and given the Episcopal Church's decision to cut ties with the federal refugee program over this case, what does this reveal about the broader ethical and political divides in the US regarding asylum policy and race?
If you remember the statement that was done by Bishop Rowe, he explained very clearly their stance, to say that they do this because their view is rooted in racial justice, reconciliation, and historical integrity. And I think that's where it is beginning. But it is also interesting to note that they've observed selective treatment of those Afrikaners. And it is for those reasons that the church, the Episcopal Church, decided to distance itself from such, and with an understanding, because if they have a relationship with the Anglican Church of Southern Africa, they understand what is the history of South Africa, what were the battles, that the struggles that ordinary South Africans were having when the minority Afrikaners were ruling the country. It is out of that background I think they made a good decision, a determination in ensuring that they distance themselves from the reversals the gain reversals by the democratic dispensation or South Africa. So I think the decision should be respected, and as an ordinary citizen myself, I really respect the decision by the Episcopal Church.
Right. Thank you very much for being with us on the show and for sharing your views.
Thank you very much.
Shifting focus now to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where floods have claimed over 100 lives. Floods triggered by torrential rains have swept through the several villages in the eastern DRC. Officials say that heavy rains caused the Kasaba River to burst its banks, with rushing waters carrying everything in their path, large stones, trees and mud, razing homes along the lake's edge. Now, more than 100 people have reportedly died, mostly children and the elderly. Rescue operations have been hampered by a lack of services and telecommunications blackout due to the floods. The affected villages are inaccessible by lake and have no internet service, according to the local humanitarian workers. Natural disasters like this are frequent in the DRC, particularly in the Great Lakes region of the east, where deforestation has weakened hill slopes. In 2023, floods killed 400 people in communities along Lake Kivu. Just last month, 33 people were killed in flooding in the capital of Kinshasa. About 5,000 families were also affected due to the floods in the capital, while poor maintenance and inadequate sewage systems worsened the situation. Meanwhile, the humanitarian crisis in the eastern DRC is compounded by the escalating conflict. The country has faced decades of fighting in the eastern region between government forces and rebel groups. In late January, the Rwanda-backed M23 rebel group launched a swift offensive, capturing Goma, the capital of North Kivu, and later taking Bukavu, the capital of South Kivu. The region is now in deep humanitarian distress. At least 7,000 people have been killed since January, and tens of thousands have been forced to flee. The recent escalation has severely impacted humanitarian efforts in the region, and natural disasters have only compounded the suffering. In a remarkable turn, Egypt has welcomed home 25 rare artifacts. These pieces now rejoin Egypt's rich history after years of recovery efforts in the US. After a 3-year effort involving Egypt's consulate in New York, the New York District Attorney's Office, and US security agencies, 25 rare Egyptian artifacts were returned. Among them are 5,500-year-old sarcophagus lids, a Greco-Roman mummy portrait, and parts of a temple believed to belong to Queen Hatshepsut. Now, the collection also includes 2,400-year-old jewelry, a rare gold coin, and small ivory and stone figurines. These items were seized in separate investigations starting in 2022 and were held at Egypt's consulate in New York until Sunday. The artifacts had been stolen from Egypt, and authorities did not reveal how they left the country or made it to the US. It is believed that the looting after the 2011 Egyptian uprising contributed to the theft of many ancient pieces. Over the last decade, Egypt has recovered nearly 30,000 artifacts from across the globe. The artifacts include wooden gilded sarcophagus lids dating back over 5,500 years, a glimpse into Egypt's ancient funeral practices and artistic masterpieces. Also included is a Greco-Roman portrait from Fayoum, a city known for its unique artistic style that combines Greek and Egyptian influences. And the recovery also includes exquisitely crafted jewelry from around 2,400 years ago, a testament to Egypt's rich craftsmanship and the diverse artistic expressions of the past. The trove also features a granite foot fragment from the Ramessid dynasty, a period of great power in Egypt's history. Now, the return of these 25 stolen artifacts marks a major victory in Egypt's effort to reclaim its ancient heritage, bringing home some of the country's most priceless artifacts. It means they will now once again be part of Egypt's historical legacy. And on to the last story. In the dry landscapes of Mauritania, mental health care is a lifeline that's hard to find. With only one psychiatric hospital in a country of about 5 million people, families navigate a challenging journey to support their loved ones. Our last story takes you to Mauritania's capital of Nouakchott, and this where hope battles against the lack of resources.
In Mauritania's capital, Nouakchott, this modest-looking building is the country's only psychiatric hospital. Its 20 rooms carry the weight of mental health of a nation of 5 million. Resources are often stretched thin. In room 13, 22-year-old Sidi is wrapped under this floral blanket. Sidi's father, Mohammed Lamine, brought him to this clinic as a reluctant last resort. The retired army officer recounts his son's downward spiral. It's a tragedy set into motion by dashed dreams of migrating to the United States. After a bank denied him a loan for emigration, Sidi took to substance abuse. He was diagnosed with psychosis. Now, his father keeps vigil by his side, resting on a mat he brought from home.
When my son showed his problem, I tried to keep him at home, but it didn't work. I brought him here and the doctor explained that he was using drugs.
The psychiatric ward is a hive of activity. Relatives shuffle through its halls, bringing meals and companionship to their loved ones being treated here. With only a handful of specialists, the center cannot meet the demands of a population spread far and wide. It teeters on the brink of collapse. Patients often travel hundreds of miles to reach the facility.
There are no psychiatric facilities in the interior of the country. The only facility is in Nouakchott. And in Nouakchott, it's the only hospital that provides psychiatric care.
In the 1970s, mental health care in Mauritania began in the unlikeliest of settings. Desert tents pitched in the courtyard of a hospital. They called it khemas. Consultations unfolded beneath the open sky. Dr. Dia Al-Husseinu is now 83 years old. He saw through the time of khemas in Mauritania. Fresh from his studies in Senegal and Europe, he returned to his homeland in 1975 with a vision for care that merged traditional medicine. For Dr. Husseinu, those tents symbolize something more profound.
African psychiatry is a carbon copy of Western psychiatry and, in my opinion, it's not adapted the right method. We need a psychiatry that is much more humane, more humanitarian, more social.
But now the tents are replaced by the hospital's rigid walls. Inside, patients like Sidi, deemed violent, are chained to their beds, a practice rooted in necessity rather than cruelty. In Mauritania, clinical psychiatry is often the final stop on a journey that begins with practices deemed traditional. Many families first turn to marabouts, religious figures who perform rituals to expel spirits believed to cause mental distress. In the countryside, individuals with mental health issues are often denounced as lunatics. Dr. Abedi strongly asserts for wider sensitization for mental health issues in the country.
We need to do our utmost to get the message across to others, to raise awareness that psychiatric patients are not just lunatics who should be left on their own, and not just people who are going to be, who do not have solutions to their problems.
But for the mental health woes of Mauritania, hospitalization in the country's only psychiatric clinic is not the final cure all the time. Most patients stay only a few days. The lone hospital's limited capacity forces families to care at home. Yet in this fragile system, moments of connection and recovery often prevail. For now, the graffiti on Room 13's wall remains a poignant reminder. Stress kills your neurons, it says. But beyond these words lies a deeper necessity: the unprecedented need for care, compassion, and a system that sees mental health as a right and not a luxury.
And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.